And we are live.
Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order at 3:13 p.m. And we'll move to the approval of the agenda as circulated on September the 18th, 2021. Can I have a mover? Mike?
John, I will.
Mike and then John. It'll be the Mike and John show all day today, so back and forth, one or the other. Okay, all in favor of approval of the agenda as circulated? We can just do by hand since it's just the two of you. Okay, that's good. Thank you. And then I believe number 4, Yolanda, is approval of the minutes of June 21st, 2021, the Grafton Communal Water Committee meeting. Can I have a mover? Mike, a seconder, John? All in favor? Carried. Is there any business arising from those minutes? John or Mike or Bruce, Troy, Larry, anybody? Seeing none? Okay, we'll move on to number 6, financial reports. I guess that'll go to you, Carol.
I've just given the budget to actual to the committee for any questions on it or.
Okay, I'm doing like Mike, I didn't see anything myself, but I mean, I'm not sure Mike or John or Troy, anybody else, any concerns?
No, straightforward when I looked at it.
Okay, so can I have a mover to accept the budget, the actual report?
I'll do that.
Mike, a seconder, John? All in favor? Okay, passed. And if you have any questions about it, you can just call Carol if there's any concerns. Number 7, grant and funding opportunities. Council Report A009 2021 from Pat Kemp, Acting Clerk, dated August the 19th, Ministry of Infrastructure, Green Stream 2021 intake.
Good afternoon. Yep, good afternoon. So I'm just making the water committee aware that I did take a report to council and they gave me approval to send in a grant application under the Green Stream 2021 intake. The grant is due tomorrow. I've had some assistance with Bruce and from Larry and also from Dan from SEMA. And we've had a conference call this afternoon or a Zoom meeting this afternoon to go over the final draft of the application. So the project must be completed within 4 years. And so we're applying for the new well and we'll decommission the existing well. And in the report that I sent to council, we were going to include the roof replacement, but it seems that the grants need to be focused on whatever the main issue is. So we'll be just submitting it for the replacement of the well. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Right now, it looks like it's about $1.7 million that we'll be applying for funding for.
So then that number will change what shows there that the water users would be on the hook for about 533,000. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes. So what we did was we took an estimate of 2 million because that was based on the previous submission and recent figures that I received on Friday show about 1.7 million. So the share for the municipal users will be reduced.
Okay.
And this program, we have to fund the money up front. So the township is going to use its reserves to pay for it up front. And then the government, once it's approved and finalized, and they reimburse the municipality. So
Okay. Hopefully we're successful in that because that's going to save the water users a lot of money if the provincial and the federal government can cough up some money.
Yes, it's a big ticket item and it is a good grant to have. 40% comes from the federal government and 33.3% from the provincial government. So
Pat, when do we get some kind of answer? Is that in the fall or?
It may not be until next spring, and the reason
Oh.
being because it's goes through the province, they do a review, and then they send it off to the federal government for their review. So typically it takes a while, especially when you've got two levels of government that have to do the review. So,
Okay, Mike, you had a question?
Yes, do we know what the competition's like at all, or we're just one off, I guess?
I don't know who else is applying for it. That's what you were asking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know who else is applying for it. So I would say we stand just as good a chance as anybody else, especially since we're replacing a well in order to have a backup well that will send potable water to our users.
Okay, and my follow-up question is a political one. Have we lobbied both the provincial and federal government, or do we need to do that, or has the mayor stepped into that breach, or not to your knowledge?
As far as I know, the mayor has not. Usually what happens is once we submit the grant application, then the mayor would contact both the federal and provincial governments.
Okay. I'm sure she will. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions regarding the report? Seeing none, we brought it to the table to receive and file, right? Because there's no action on our part. So
Correct.
Is everybody in favor of receiving and filing that?
I'll make the motion to receive and file.
Okay, Mike, and then John will second, and all in favor, Yolanda. So number 8, projects, technical memorandum from George Camp Limited dated July 14th, 2021. Grafton monitoring wells and the BTEX detection update regarding June sampling. Nice reading, Bruce.
Okay,
Wow.
Once again,
Yeah,
that was a short.
it couldn't be any drier than dry toast.
holy man, you gotta brighten it up a little, buddy.
So do I can make a motion to bring it forward to the floor, right, Yolanda, for discussion, or does Bruce do his report first?
Actually, if you just read the recommendations that's on the agenda there.
Okay, I will. Be it resolved that the technical memorandum from George Camp Limited dated July 14th, 2021, re Grafton monitoring wells and the BTEX detection update regarding June sampling be received and filed, and further that the report be forwarded to the council of the township of A&H. Can I have a mover?
So moved.
Mike, and John second. And do we do the all in favor to bring it, or we let him do the report first?
Yeah, I would have the discussion first, maybe.
It's all yours, Bruce.
Okay, well, so this was just an updated report of the ongoing monitoring program. We detected BTEX. BTEX, hold on if I can, not sure how to mute that. There we go, fixed it. Oh. Hang on. Okay, sorry about that. I got distracted. So this was just a follow-up to the ongoing monitoring report. We have there's conditions of the permit to take water that includes monitoring of the 3 Sentinel wells and water level monitoring in the area. We found that there was three issues this year with the monitoring program. We've got the elevated ammonia at production well 1, which is what Pat essentially was dealing with there. So we're in the process of looking at replacing production well number 1. Then there was in the whole process, and with COVID and all that, we left all the data loggers deployed, and we found a strange observation in that there was drawdown on one of the closed landfill monitoring wells. You'd never see that without a data logger deployed. We found it. We've been monitoring it for the last 20 years, but only taking spot measurements. So you never see the daily little fluctuations. Anyways, and then the third issue was the BTEX at monitoring well, one intermediate.
Bruce, can you
Yep.
can you just tell us so that we know what does drawdown mean? Drawdown was observed.
Drawdown is when you turn on PW2, you see the water level decline at the one other monitoring well. In fact, you see it in a number of them, but we just didn't expect it at the shallow landfill monitoring wells. So drawdown is statics here, and it just goes blip down, and then when our production well goes off, it comes back up. It's like it's almost an immediate response. So it's drawdown and recovery. Those are the two things. So when it's pumping, it's drawdown. When it's not pumping, it recovers.
Okay.
Okay. And so we had to, and because of that, this was all flagged because of the BTEX issue. So we had to submit an interpretive report to the Ministry of the Environment, which was done in March. And we had a meeting with the Ministry of the Environment, and there was quite a few people involved in that. That meeting was held on May 18th, and 8 action items were identified with my report and with the meeting. So this memo right here is basically a follow-up of those 8 action items. So I'll just start with action item number 1 was permanently install data loggers, water level data loggers at how many locations? At
8.
8 locations. So and we already had a number of data loggers deployed anyways. So all we did was on my notes there indicate which ones were already deployed. And some of them we had to restore, and a couple of new data loggers were deployed. So that was, and then the graphs attached to this memo kind of show the data that we're collecting with those 8 locations. So everything's working. So we addressed item number 1. Then we had to collect additional samples at the monitoring well. And again, we keep getting detections of BTEX, toluene at monitoring well I. So when I say that there's 3 monitoring wells, so we have these monitoring wells between the landfill and our production well. And at these monitoring wells, we got one deep one, so it's 250 feet deep-ish, that's in the aquifer that we're taking water from. Then we have a shallow one that's 20 feet. And then the intermediate, which is what stands for the I, is at about 50 feet. So it's the one that's intermediate that keeps showing toluene, but at very, very low concentrations. But the way that the permit to take water is written, if we have the BTEX detection, then we have a contingency plan that we have to implement. And so it's a real strange occurrence, because we're clear up in the shallow, we're clear down deep, but somewhere, the intermediate one keeps showing BTEX. And maybe taking a step back, we've tried to clean the well, we've over pumped it, we've made improvements to the well to make sure there's no surface water getting in, and it still comes back, minor detection. So that's the results of that. So this report was sent to the Ministry of the Environment too, and I haven't received any comments back, other than they just asked when we're going to submit the September samples. We asked the county to sample the closed landfill monitoring wells, and we identified a number of them that we wanted BTEX and VOCs. And an interesting thing came out of that sampling event, that the worst monitors at the landfill, like the ones that are indicated indicative of leachate, they all came back non-detected BTEX, surprisingly. So I think we've kind of ruled out that the source of the BTEX is not coming from the landfill. So it's good news that that we're not capturing leachate there. But on the other hand, I still haven't resolved where all this or these low levels of toluene are coming from. So the landfill worked out okay. Then item number 4 was annual sampling, and we have something in place. Larry's going to sample for BTECs, VOCs, and general chemistry annually, and that's usually done in December, I do believe. Larry, is that correct?
Our annual testing is done in January for the upcoming year, but if you want, we can do them, get a set of samples run for this year.
It doesn't really matter. I think the last time you did them was in March of 2021. So January would be fine, as long as we collect those samples.
Yeah, we collect all our annual samples usually in January.
Okay. Then a question came up regarding the MRF. There was a fire, and then also a recent fire in 2021. There was talk of using PFAS as a detection. So the question came up, was PFAS used or any chemicals during the MRF fires? And we followed up, and the fire department indicated that fire retardant foam was not used to extinguish the fires. So MRF hasn't been adding any chemicals to the area, even with the fires. The number 6, they suggest we sample the MRF well. That's not an easy undertaking because there's an unused pump that's in there. The MRF well isn't being used, so it's a difficult well to sample, and we haven't sampled it yet. We were hoping that the county could do it, and they kind of just said, you feel free to sample it. So we haven't done anything with that yet, and maybe we'll have to revisit that number 6 before.
Bruce, quick question for you. So the MRF well is owned by the county?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And what did they use it for? Was that just for that building or something, or what?
Yes.
What was that well originally for?
Well, I think everything was happening all at once. I don't know the exact history, but just based on the date when the well was put in, the date when the Grafton wells were established, I think what happened is they built the MRF, they put a well in to service it, and then the MRF was connected to the Grafton system, and that MRF well was never put into service. They put a pump in it and had it all set, ready to go, but it was never commissioned.
So there's never ever been any sampling taken from it?
No, there hasn't. No, I've been on the project, for 22 years, if maybe, yeah, about 22, maybe longer than that, 25 years. And it's been that situation right from when I took it over. No, we haven't been able to sample it. We'd have to remove that pump and then put a test pump in.
So I guess my question would be, I'm no expert, but could the toluene or the BTEX be coming from the MRF well?
No, it's highly unlikely because the MRF well is a deep well, like it's in the deep aquifer. We're not seeing the toluene in the deep aquifer. So even if you were to pour it directly into that well, it'd have to come back up and out to a shallower depth. So it's not the source.
Okay.
But it's an important well to the monitoring program. We've been monitoring water levels, but in part of our study with the, in looking for a new well to replace PW1, the question came up, can we put the MRF well in service? And I think there's a problem with that well in that I don't think it makes enough water to start with. But we don't even know the water quality. So it'd be good to get the water quality for that aspect too. So
I guess my only concern is, so they own the well, and if you own the well, even though you're not using it, there's no requirement under law that they have to test it every once in a while, or what? Or do they just, it's obviously not sealed up.
You're required to abandon a well if you're not using it. But in this case, we kind of are, because it's a monitoring well. Like we're using it to monitor the aquifer water levels. So I think it's an important well in terms for us, not important for the county.
But we have never tested it.
We have never tested it, no.
So we,
Quality wise, we've always measured the water level in it.
oh, you've always measured the water level. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I get
We actually have a data logger in there now.
Okay. All
Water.
right. Now I understand.
Yeah.
So the big issue you're saying, Bruce, is the pump would have to come up to test it, or you can't do like a one-time sampling or something where they scoop water out of it or do something? I'm not sure how you test.
That doesn't work. You have to purge the well. It hasn't been used for a while, so we'd have to put a pump in it. For example, and because it's so deep, it's a difficult well to sample. I think the water level is like 100 feet down. So it's tough to get water from it. Just to use an example, then we got the monitoring well deep, and we actually have a dedicated submersible pump that stays in there with controls that are in the surface. We bring a generator out, we plug it in, start it up to get our sample, and we pump that well for 4 hours before we get our sample. When I say 4 hours, it's probably pumping at about 5 to 10 gallons a minute. Not a lot of water, but enough to clean it right out, and we'll get a representative sample. So we'd almost have to do the same here with the this MRF. If we got it out, it's probably about a day's work with a contractor. I have pumps. I can put in test pumps, a smaller one, but I can't pump. Well, I could, but it's a lot of work. If we put a test pump in, and then he would take his pump away, and then we'd have at least we'd know how the water quality was, whether we have ammonia. That's what I want to. I'm not really looking for the BTEX in that one, but ammonia would be a good confirmation on there.
So what are we talking? What's the cost then to do that? Because it sounds like if it's just sitting there and we've only data logged the level and never actually tested it, wouldn't it be good to at least have a test done to as a starting point there, and maybe later in a few years or something they do it again? Or
I agree, and I think I had a quote, and I have to dig it up, and I think it was like $2,500. Wasn't a lot, it's like a day's worth of work for the driller to come out with his pump truck and pull it out. It's kind of on a hill. It's in a grassed area. I think if you were to bring a pump truck out there, you'd need better weather. Like you couldn't do it in the winter and stuff. It'd be really tough to get in there. So I think the time to do it is, obviously summertime till, fall. So I could get a quote if you want and firm it up again. It's been a couple of years. I had a quote for it to sample it and test it. I just have to revisit that because things have changed a little bit and rates have gone up.
so John, Mike, Troy, what do you think?
I think getting a quote wouldn't hurt. Then it's a discussion, right? So then we know, right? So getting a quote, I think, would be a good step.
Okay, I'll update that quote. I think it was, I approached, was it G. Hart and Sons out of Fenland Falls there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just if you test it and it says the water is good, what does that prove, and what would we use from that information?
Well, that's a really good question. It would prove that the ammonia is limited to PW1, which is what we think it is. We may find that the water, I'm not just sampling. I want to do a short pumping test. So it's called a step test. So they pump it at 10 gallons and 20 gallons and 30 gallons, keep stepping it up at half-hour increments. And then that does two things. Then we get the well purged to collect the sample, and then we got background information on the well performance. What's that well's going to tell us? So if let's say it could tell us two things: the ammonia is either good in that area or it's bad. We might have to avoid that area when we're test drilling.
Avoid it, you mean for a new well?
When we're looking for a new well too. I think we'd also look at VOCs, just to close that one off. VOCs, I mean, a BTEX, just to confirm that we don't have a BTEX issue in that area.
Hmm.
It's more or less just, it's an unknown, so we're just, addressing that one. I suspect we will not have BTEX, and I suspect that we'll have low ammonia, but I don't think the yield will be all that high, so.
So even if it comes out okay, it's still not a well we can use. It might just tell us an area we could use for the new well if we get the grant.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm. And if the
And-
grant isn't coming through to the spring, I'm just wondering, I'm not against saying that we could do it between now and fall, next month or two, but what would be the difference between now versus doing it next spring?
Not much. It's just that it was on the to-do list, so that's why I just, still keeping it up there.
Yeah,
Or as an action item. We could, put it off to the spring or next year. I mean, it's been this situation for years. But I think Troy and I talked about it. We were trying to encourage the county to go ahead and do it. But I think they were aware of what we're up to and just said, yeah, go ahead and sample it if you want.
so if we do it, can we get them to pay for it?
Well, that's what we were trying to do.
The answer is no, right?
And they didn't put their hand up to offer to sample it. But on the other hand, they did offer to sample the landfill, the closed landfill ones. And I don't think they charged an expense for that.
Okay.
You had a question, Mike?
Yeah, I'm looking at, if we get this grant, then it will get green lighted in, let's say February of next year. At that point, this information would be useful for you before you start looking to put in a new well. Am I correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Mhm. So, and we know we're not going to get, we're not going to get the approval before that time. Again, I'll defer to Troy. Am I right in my timing?
Correct.
Okay, so we could do it in the spring.
I think we could. I think we could defer it.
Yeah. It's not that I'm not prepared to do it. I think it's a good idea. I would like to narrow down the possibilities of where that well will go and get it right. And if that helps us get it right, then I certainly don't oppose the idea. Just the timing, as John said, we got a couple options.
A question I have, Bruce. So when we're searching for a location for a well, say next year we do get the grant, is the MRF either a consideration? Do we not have to own the land that we're going to put a well on? Or could the county come back to us and say, well, you're going to put a well on our property, we're going to charge you or something? Or how does that work? I have no idea.
I've worked with another number of municipalities where it's the county looking to the township for land, or in that case, most municipalities all seem to work together. They like in that case, like say we wanted a test drill, so you'd approach them about, test drilling on the property first to see if the water's there, and then second build the production well. But usually municipalities like the counties and townships are quite agreeable, and usually they there's horse trading or whatever, just giving land back and forth.
Troy's a good horse trader. Okay, so it sounds like then Mike and John and Troy and I agree with you, then maybe we can wait until the spring if we think that it's valuable enough that that we should do that test in the spring, because it could help us with selection of a well. Or maybe if this BTEX and the ammonia problem and everything continues, and then we decide that we want to spend the $2,500 in the spring to count that well out, or make sure there's no issues with it. Just find it's funny that you got this well for, I don't know how long it's been there, Bruce, but I'm guessing fairly long, and then nobody bothers to test it or do anything. You would think the county would do some kind of testing or monitoring once in a while just to make sure that they don't have a well full of poison or toxic stuff, but especially around the MRF, because if anything is going to leach into the ground or that would be an ideal spot.
Well, it's up gradient. It's up on the hills, you know, so it's not down gradient. I think it's in a good spot for the MRF. But I agree with you, like any unused wells, you'd think that the county would have a program in place to decommission used wells. Even the township, for example, if there's any unused wells, you know, it might be prudent to have a program to abandon, fill in all these unused wells once the water lines come in and connect these old residents.
Yeah. You had a question, Mike?
Just a comment, thinking about dollars like John there. I wonder if this could become part of an expense to the grant if we are successful. If we delay it till the spring and we get the grant, then this is part of the process of drilling our new well. I wonder what Pat would say to that.
I don't expect us to get the funding approval until probably later in the summer. And the other issue is in the application, we had to say if we own the property. So if we are using county property, that may have an impact on our application.
Negative or positive? Negative, I guess.
Negative, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So it just means we would be searching for a well on our own property first.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
just to confirm, like there's that parcel of land, you know, where the fire hall is, and then you get to the pump house and the wells itself. And then there's the forested area in between there once you get to the MRF.
Yeah.
That's township land, I always assumed. Is that correct?
Troy?
I'm on my mapping right now, if you can give me a minute. Jefferson Road. Yes, it is township. So
Yeah.
we go over quite far, pretty close.
So I think what used to be township land, even on the MRF, and then here's where the trading goes. And I think then the town gave, the county that little parcel of land so they could put the MRF in there.
Yeah, so the township owns right over to the entrance at the MRF. So we butt right along that entrance. So that whole forest area, that's all township property.
Okay.
So we have a lot of land there.
Yeah. So, you know what, the MRF, we got so much land, I don't think we need to go to the MRF.
No.
But it still would be nice to like close up that question mark of what water quality is like at the MRF.
Yeah, I
Especially
hear you.
before we start drilling.
And maybe it's another meeting with the county right around, in the next month or two when they're doing their budget, right? In case it becomes a budget item, or they can put a line item in there for, the MRF well, just to, maybe help us with costing. So it's just a good time if we're going to be asking the county for any kind of assistance. This is a good timing when they're doing their budget, right? So.
I think that's a good idea, Troy, to make that request. At least then, it's a formal request, and it might be taken more seriously. I support that idea. It's a good idea.
I can set that up, and I'll just need maybe help with Bruce. So.
Yeah, okay, and maybe the approach is on it that we want the pump removed to ensure that there's no connection from their system to that well or to the aquifer, let's say, that they can't put water back in, contaminated water back into the well.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is an open system. There's a pipeline that goes from that well to the MRF. So.
Okay, well, there's an argument.
Yeah.
That's
Okay, well,
interesting
you
because
choose.
then there could be the contamination could be theoretically coming from there then.
Potentially
it's-
could, but then again, as I said earlier on, you got different levels. We got the 250-foot level and then this 50-foot level. So it'd be on, even if we directly contaminated the 250-foot level through via the MRF well, we'd still have to pull it all the way back up to the 51-foot, and water wants to go down in that area. So I think it would be highly unlikely to contaminate the aquifer with BTEX from that well.
Okay.
Good try though, Greg. You worked him over twice on that.
Well, I just want to make sure we're crossing everything off properly because it's a game of finding out where this stuff's coming from. So basically it's tested and rule it out, right? And then, I just find it so surprising that nobody's bothered to do any, not us, that the county hasn't done any testing or anything. I guess if they don't know, they don't test it, they don't know. So, and then they don't have an issue. Okay, Bruce, so you're at number 7, I think.
That's number 7, and we kind of discussed, I guess, the last BTEX results. I think we touched base on it, but I'll just go over it just really quickly again. So we collected additional samples. We're sampling quarterly. We usually sample those wells annually, but because of the toluene, we agreed that we'd bump it up. They actually had me going in there, I think, was it on a weekly basis, which it was extreme, but I convinced them to keep it at quarterly. So we've got the last sampling results were in June, and we continue to have that really, really trace level of toluene. We even did a tracer parameter of 1,4-dioxane, which is a man-made chemical, and that wasn't detected in any of the we were kind of looking for tracer chemicals to trace back from the landfill. Excuse me. And since we didn't find the dioxane at the Grafton wells, there's no point in sampling for dioxane at the closed landfill. And the closed landfill sampled for BTEX and didn't find any in any of their monitoring wells. I was kind of shocked at that. I thought we'd see some, but nothing. So in other words, that's kind of good news though too. So there isn't a huge, contamination plume coming out of that landfill.
Yeah.
It seems like things are kind of settled down. It's been closed for 25 plus years. There's no real bad stuff coming from that area. So that was the discussion. I thought I had 8 items, but I only see 7 of them here. What was number 8? Oh no, there was only 7 items. Sorry. Okay. And so the ministry did contact me last week and just asked when we were going to sample the wells again, which was due in September. And so I was kind of waiting for this meeting just to have a discussion in case there was anything else, and then probably going out next week to sample them. Okay.
Just remind me again, Bruce, when we talked about the drawdown that was observed at the closed landfill monitoring well.
Yeah. So
that's affecting what? Is that affecting well number 1, well 2? What Grafton wells is that affecting when they?
Well, I think it's the other way around. I think it's the Grafton wells are affecting the water levels in that location. So I was concerned that we discovered a pathway of directly connecting, from the landfill to the deep or to our production wells. That's what I was concerned about. But I think it's the other way around. I think there's quite a fall from where the production wells are to the landfill. I think there's almost 20 meters fall. By the time, it doesn't seem like it, but where those monitoring wells are to where the production wells are. So you got this 20 meters of fall. And as you fall, the water level in the aquifer starts to get closer to the surface because the surface is falling. So, so say at the water level is like 30 meters below ground level at the production wells, but at that location, it's like 10 meters. But and as they drill down, they get closer to the aquifer too at shorter distances. So I think what's happening in there is it's almost like a spring-like conditions where the water wants to push up from the deep aquifer. They intercepted it with that one monitoring well. It was just a fluke, and the upward gradient of that water pushing up is supporting that monitoring well. So when we depressurize it by pumping, it draws down a little bit at that monitoring well, but it only does it in the one spot too. So I think it's holding up that water. It's not capturing water is what I'm trying to get at. So I think the Ministry of the Environment, well, they were in agreement with that. And we'll just kind of keep our eye on it. Now that we know that there's a connection there, we'll monitor it with the data logger.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
So that was a good explanation for a layman. I understood what you were saying. Thank you.
So the motion was made to receive and file, and Bruce explained it all to us. Is there any other discussion? Anybody, any questions about it, or we're all okay for now? We agreed we would wait until the springtime, and you know, whether or not we do the testing or whatever, or even if it's a little bit later in the summer, if we're successful for the grant, that we try and tie it in, like Mike said, to somehow in with the grant to, that's in our process of searching for a well, and maybe that's one of the costs we try to associate with it.
And also, if I may, Greg, that Troy is going to explore having the county pick up the testing of the MRF well.
Yeah.
Troy and Bruce.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I'll try and word it so that you know that I think they're aware that well's important to our monitoring, but we're concerned about the open connection. You know, with and it should be at least mothballed, not mothballed, but because they're not going to reuse it, but at least set up so that there's no direct connection that they can pump into it.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor to receive and file? Okay, carried. Now we're on to the Grafton Drinking Water System Report from Lucy, reporting period June 2021 to August 21. Be it resolved that the Grafton Drinking Water System Report, reporting June 2021 to August 2021, as prepared by Larry, Manager of Water Capital Projects, Lucy, be received and filed, and further that the committee recommendation is required. So can I have a mover for that, please? John, seconded by Mike. You got the floor, Larry.
Good afternoon, everybody. So if you look at the monitoring, you can notice that in June, we took most water from the water plant there, just over 9,000 cubic meters. In July, it dropped to 6,600 cubic meters and went up again in August. So June, I'm putting it towards flushing in that, and then with start up in the springtime for summertime, I guess, with pools and that, because we do have a lot of water haulers that do haul water for pools and other stuff. So that was good for those 3 months there. And then, of course, item number 2 talked about the BTEX and all that there, and a new inspector. The raw water on number 3, the raw water pipe repairs, working with SEMA. We're in discussion there. We're getting ready to put the tender out. There's been discussion to go away from stainless steel to Schedule 80 or Schedule 40 PVC. The reason being is that when the pipe loses, when it's not full and it's stainless steel, there'll be some off-gassing from the chlorine sodium hypo that has affected stainless steel, where it doesn't affect PVC as much, right? So, and plus PVC is a lot cheaper than stainless steel. Maintenance issues there. We've had regular maintenance there, a recertification and verification of all the equipment, the analyzers in the water treatment plant. And this is a requirement that we bring a third party in for our doing this so that the MOE knows that it's being done. We replaced one vacuum brake line on the header pipe. Divine did some maintenance on raw water flow control and discharge PRV, which is also maintenance done yearly. Mike Schneider's been adjusting the well shutdown sequence on the SCADA system. In July, we had a minor repair to pump 1. And then moving to item 5, the hydrant flushing, we completed that. And then there was a total of 5 hydrants that needed attention and repairs. So they have been completed. Maintenance issues in the distribution. There again, another yearly thing there. We had Divine come in and adjust the PRVs in the zones to make sure that they're working properly. In the compliance part, we had, like I said, we got a new inspector now, and we just finished our inspection with him in Colburn recently. The WQMS internal audit went great. Another round where we didn't have any non-conformities, but we did have some opportunities of improvement. And the WQMS works on the premise so that you say you're going to do something, you do it, and then you review it. So it's a continuous wheel so that we're always improving the system and making it a lot easier and a lot more familiar, and that makes sure that things don't slip by. So our compliance coordinator, Sarah Witten, who will be going on maternity leave starting shortly for the next 20 months. So we've hired a new girl to start the compliance part. But Sarah has left it in good hands, or in a good shape for us. So there is a couple of things that comes out of the audit that we're following up on, and it's about the QMS rep, and then infrastructure upgrades, making sure that we have the proper flow charts in there, that we're doing certain things to make sure that they're being documented, and then also from staff input. And that, because that's a big part of it, is to see, where we need to improve and where the staff sees, so that we bring it forward and then we can get those done. And then that's the end of my report. So any questions, I'll gladly answer.
So what, Yolanda, is the committee recommendation required for?
Sorry, that was to just to see if the committee wanted to forward that report on to council for their review.
Mike or John, are you guys okay with that, to forward it on to council?
I'll support that. Yes, I think council should be aware.
John, will you
I
second?
think we should do that, yes.
Okay, so Mike will make the motion and John will second it, that we forward it on to council. All in favor? Passed. Okay, thank you very much, Larry.
No problem.
Any questions for Larry? Not gonna grill him like we grilled Bruce? Okay. Number 9, new business for future discussion. Mike?
Well, I just wanted to formalize the information around realizing that we will be looking for an RFP because Lucy's contract is up, I believe, in January. I know that Troy is very much aware of this, and we have discussed it informally, but I wanted just to put it on the table in a formal way, just so that everybody's aware that we will be looking at a new RFP being issued, and looking to see what the competition's like.
John, anything to bring up or?
I did have a question. I wanted to know if there's any update on getting additional members for this water committee.
Yeah, I can comment a little bit on that. It was discussed at our last meeting, council meeting, and we have, I believe, one person, and there might have been a second one that just came in at the last minute. And what council directed staff to do was in the next water bill that goes out, John, that they're going to put a notice in there too, that whether anybody would be interested in being on the water board, the committee, and they're going to advertise it on the town website and on the LED signs and that, and then they're going to make a final decision then. So anybody that's applied, that's great. I think there's one for sure, and I think there's a second one. I could be wrong, Mike, I'm not sure. And if that's true, I think Yolanda, does the bill go out in September or October? Is it September?
I believe we're going to try to have a newsletter go out with the lakefront utility billing cycle that is being sent out in September, but I believe residents will receive it in October. Am I right with that, Larry? I know the billing cycle for this month was September 20th, September
Yes.
24th.
Yeah, something like that, 20th, 23rd, something like that, yeah.
Now the residents won't get that information though until October, or will they get it by the end of September? If it's mailed out, I'm assuming like mid-September, then they'll get it by the end of September.
Yeah, if we can get it if you can get it to us, we can put it in the billing cycle when it goes. And because it'll be sent out with the bills, the company that does our billing will stuff the bills with it.
Okay.
So it's just need the information.
Well, the sooner the better. So if it is going out in September, that's timely.
Yes, we're only like a week and a half away from the date.
Okay, good. And then those other applications will be rolled forward. If there's a second one there, we'll roll those forward and they'll all be evaluated at the same time. So that's good. Okay.
Because we do realize, John, we had James
we need at least
pass away, and then we need somebody too. We lost for John, right? So we're looking for, I would say, at least two, right? Can there be more members on the committee, Yolanda, than that, or?
I believe so, Pat, if you could correct me, but I do believe we could have as many as we like, or is there a number limit?
There is no number limit, although council will have to approve of any additions to your committee as it stands at the moment. So currently it's 3 non-elected and 2 elected members.
So hopefully, John, we get a whole whack of people that want to in September, October. They've got lots of time because COVID's ending and they want to volunteer, and then we can get our committee back up to strength.
So that was kind of my question too. I heard 3 non-elected, so we have 2 openings for 2 more non-elected, correct?
Yeah.
At least 2, yeah.
And I think, like Pat said, if we had 5 or 6 people, then it could come to council and we could change to say, I mean, the more the merrier. I think the more people that we have, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a timeline to make that happen?
To make what happen? To increase or to
at least get 2 more?
Yeah, that's what we're looking at now. Like I said, so like Mike said, we'll take the 2 that we have now, and if we get anybody in September, October, then it'll go to council, and then they'll make the decision, and hopefully by then we're back to full strength. I'm hoping we get a bunch of people put in for it, right? And then, if we get another 3 or 4 plus the 2, and we can add 5 members to the committee or 4, that would be even better, right?
Right. I'm just wondering what the timeline is. Does that mean we would try and add at least 2, if not more, by end of October? Is that the target, or what's the target?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. That's what I would hope for.
Yeah, that would be reasonable for sure. That would be my judgment as well. The other thing that's unusual is that usually 2 councillors don't sit on a committee, and if we get an ample number, it may one of us may go somewhere else that's needed. Maybe not. I know we both enjoy it, if I can say so, if I can speak for Greg, but you know, part of the reason we're both here is because it's a little bit, we're a little bit short-staffed.
I love those reports from Bruce. I sit down with a bag of chips and I won't say what I drink with it. It's non-alcoholic, of course, and I read his loving reports and those charts. They're just fantastic.
Is it a sleep aid?
Do you have grandkids, Bruce? Is that your one with the crayon that does all those? Okay, any other questions? Anything else to bring up? John, Mike, Troy, Larry, Bruce, Pat? Carol?
I'm sorry, Counselor Booth, if I could just drag you back to item number 8.
Yeah,
There was an item there, correspondence from SEMA Plus, having to do with their quotation for the detailed design of the water treatment plant pipe.
Yeah, I had brought that forward.
You did, but nobody has, it's a separate item on the agenda.
okay.
And there is a recommendation there for that document, as it does discuss the pricing having to do with doing those works.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't see that in there. Am I missing it somewhere? Talked about,
Right after the Grafton
what
drinking water system,
what page is it then? Is it part of the report? Like, of
it's page 65 to 66. It's a 1-page document
okay,
from SEMA, and it's basically a letter with their quotation price on there.
62, 63.
Very bottom, last
Oh,
one.
yes, I see. Okay.
Yeah, it should be the last attachment in the agenda.
I see. So that went to you, Larry. That's for the detailed design and the tender prep for.
Yes, yes, for the header there, and I wasn't sure what the process was because I know council had approved the 50K for the header, and this was part of it. So I just brought it forward to say this is what the cost of the design is and the tendering process. So I was looking for more for direction.
Okay, so then we should have to approve this, then I would think, Yolanda?
Yes.
Okay, can I have, if you want to read it first, maybe John and Mike, or you've read it. I missed that. I guess I went through everything and just didn't see that. But basically it's saying it's $14,000 for them to. And it's obviously probably been done, right, Larry?
The design is I would say is 90% done. We're just finalizing a couple of the things there, and then they're getting ready to tender it out.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we've
So if we
already
could-
sort of pre-approved it.
Yeah, it was approved by council to do it. So I was just bringing this forward, this part of it.
Yeah. So it's really just a
Maybe receive and file then, Yolanda?
I believe so, as long as this 14,000 is a part of the originally approved 50,000.
And that's,
I'm just not sure if it's separate from the 50,000 or.
that's what we're hearing, right, Larry? Is that
No,
part of
yes, yeah, it's part of the 50,000.
Okay, then yeah, receive and file should be fine.
So could I have a mover to receive and file the Grafton WTP piping detailed design and tender preparation quotation for $14,000? John, seconder Mike, all in favor? Passed. So that's just for information. If anybody's questioning the, when they start adding up all the costs of it, we're already 14,000 in. Okay, thank you, Yolanda, for that. Anything else under new business for future discussion from anybody? None being, the next meeting is October the 20th at 3 p.m. Is that good for everybody?
Yep, it's good for me.
Now,
Yep.
Yolanda, do you have John's phone number? You have mine and Mike's, right? John, can you give a phone number to Yolanda just in case? Because the three of us, it's so critical that if one of us don't attend, then if I fall asleep on the couch or Mike's out doing his gardening or you forget to, that she can, at least we have a number or something. I know I don't check my emails that often, so if they send an email, I might not read it till late. If we can just make sure Yolanda's got a contact for all of us, that would be great.
Okay,
Yeah, just send me an email, John, and that would be fine.
okay.
Thank you.
So everybody's good for the 20th?
Yeah, I'm good for the 20th.
Yep.
Bruce, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Yep.
Troy, Carol, Pat? Okay. Adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn? John, seconded by Mike. All in favor? Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
You run a great meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say sorry for screwing it up and that, but it sounds like Mike just wants to push it on to somebody else.
Good
Okay,
meeting, Greg.
thank you, everybody. Have a nice day. Stay safe.
Yeah, take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Talk soon.